How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So today's video, a bit different to the usual battle videos. I am recapping my runs at two recent regionals that happened in Lille and Bremen. I placed 19th and 16th respectively, so pretty good runs. X2 in both, so 5-2 in Lille and 6-2 in Bremen. Basically going to go over all the matchups I faced against, kind of what the metagame's looking like. I'm recording this live on Twitch as well, so Twitch chat can ask me questions, that kind of stuff. If you're not following me on Twitch already and you want to, see content like this, ask me questions live, interact, that kind of thing, link to that will be in the description, so check that out down below. And before we get started, I just want to say there aren't going to be any rank reports this week, unfortunately. I've been incredibly busy. I was in Europe for the entirety of last week, so I didn't have any time to record anything. I didn't want to record 3 weeks worth before I left. So none this week, because I'm, like I said, no time to record last week. This week I'm prepping for the last regional I'm going to, which is Milan, which is where I will hopefully secure my Worlds invite. But yeah, I'm focusing pretty hard on prepping for that. So those will be back next week, do not worry. But yeah, none this week. Yeah, let's crack on. So first of all, we're going to have a look at my run at Lille Regional. I used the same team for both. That team being the one you see at the top of the screen and at the bottom of the screen. Zacian, Kyogre, Incin, Rillaboom, Grimmsnarl, and Zapdos. And get used to that 6, because you will see it a lot in this video and just in general going forwards. Pretty standard, like bulky, it's being referred to as like Pengy Rain after Pengy, Stefan Mott. He won Indianapolis. Was it Indy he won with it? It was, wasn't it? He won Indianapolis Regionals with this 6. And so there's a million variants of it going around at the moment. It's everywhere. And I'm one of those people who is using it. So round 1, came against a guy named Jorge. The early rounds at Lille honestly weren't that spectacular. Can't really remember what happened in some of them, I'll be honest. This one, I'm pretty sure my opponent maxed Thundy. It was Defiant Thundy. I'm pretty sure he maxed it both games. And like this team has means of getting around Thundurus. So basically, it's play defensive, stall out max, and then once that happened, it was like I think both games actually was Thundy Calyrex lead, and then Landorus, Kyogre in back, but non-Dynamax Landorus is not very threatening because I bring Rillaboom to this matchup because it's super good to Kyogre, super good to Calyrex. Not terrible into Lando if you bring it in after Lando comes in, so without Intimidate, it's pretty decent. Yeah, the Grassy trade basically just nullifies all of Landorus' damage if it's not Dynamaxing. So that one wasn't too bad. I'm trying to think what my 4 would have been there. Probably like Grim, I guess like Grim Ogre, Rillaboom, Zacian or something like that, I don't know. Something along those lines. But yeah, that game was relatively comfortable. Round 2 was also pretty comfortable. This team looks like it could be tricky. Like Gastro is difficult for Kyogre. And then Amoonguss can be a problem if Trick Room goes up. Calyrex can deal a lot of damage to me usually. However, this Calyrex was running Glacial Lance, Zen Headbutt, Trick Room, Protect. So it didn't have a ground move. Now, you don't need a Psychic move on Calyrex, just as a general rule. And the reason for that is kind of standard checks for Calyrex, or some of the better Pokemon into it, are Zacian and Incin, right? And to an extent, Kyogre, a little bit. Not amazing, but like having high horsepower and max Quake helps you hit Zacian and Incin for super effective damage, so you threaten them a lot more, and it helps you stack special defense boosts in front of Kyogres, that kind of thing. But without that max Quake, so with Ice and Psychic as your only coverage, you've got nothing to hit Zacian or Incineroar. And the Mimikyu as well, it was Weakness Policy, Calyrex. The Mimikyu had Shadow Sneak to set that off, and normally on Mimikyu sets like this, you'll see, like the one I run on my Palkia Calyrex team, you'll see like Shadow Sneak, you'll see Trick Room, and then some combination of like Will-O-Wisp, Taunt, what else do you see on Mimikyu? You see Safeguard sometimes, kind of, it's generally built to be very supportive. This one was Protect, Trick Room. Protect was actually kind of interesting, because it just meant that you could lead it next to whatever you wanted, like Incineroar, I think it was led next to most of the time. And it just gave you an option of protecting it on the turn that your Calyrex comes in, or the turn that your Incin parting shots out, or whatever, so you can get Calyrex in and keep Mimikyu alive to side proc. So I don't mind the Protect, but then its last 2 moves were Shadow Sneak and Play Rough, right? So it's got no taunt, it's got no Willow, it's no disruption of any kind, which meant that once it had set off Calyx's policy, it was useless. And the combination of no support move McHugh and no ground move Calyrex meant this is basically free, because you send an Ince in, you get Zacian in the field, and my opponent just couldn't do anything to me, right? Like, inside a Trick Room, Ince is not as scared of Kyogre, you can parting shot off it, right? So you're not under that much threat. Outside a Trick Room, Zacian deals with it pretty well. Rillaboom deals with it decently. Like, yeah, it's basically, once I'd figured out, like, game 1 I was playing around the Max Quake a lot. Game 2, once I figured out what the moveset was, like, this matchup was kind of free. And that is why you don't run double stab Calyrex. If you want, like, you need ice, you need ground, really. If you want to run a third move, maybe you can go Seed Bomb, but I prefer Trick Room Protect personally. It really depends. But yeah, that was round 2. Round 3, honestly, I don't remember what happened in round 3. I think round 3 was indeed Lando was the lead, certainly in game, well, it was one of the games. But I'm just gonna let Ince into that. Got Burning Jealousy on it, so you can get around any setup moves or anything. So Lando's just kind of a non-threat. I can't remember if this was physical or special or lucky. I may have taken notes. Hold on. This may look awful. I'm going to click on this and see if I took notes on what kind of lucky this was. I did not. I did it for some of the teams and then just not for other ones. But yeah, let me just... Ooh, there you go. Yeah, I don't think this is a particularly eventful game. 2-0 that one. And then we get on to round 4. Now, I was playing pretty good at the moment. Even though my first rounds weren't immensely difficult, I was playing good, right? And then I come up against Philip, and I continue to play really good. I win game 1. I can't remember exactly what happened, but, like, I mean, my 4 into this matchup is probably, I'd guess, like, Zap Grim Ogre Zacian, or Ogre Incense, something like that. Do I even bring... Maybe I don't actually bring Zacian to this matchup. I can't remember what I brought, but I know for a fact I brought Kyogre, brought Zap, I brought Grim. I played game 1 really well. I can't remember exactly what happened, but it was a lot of kind of positioning. There was a lot of hacks involved on both sides, but like that's how it goes when everything's paralysed and things can miss and stuff. And then game 2, we again play out a very slow defensive game, and we get into an end game where I've managed to bring in my Kyogre in rain against a paralysation that's at like 40%-ish, and then a Torkoal that is at maybe like 90%. That has a Quake boost, like a special defense boost from a Venusaur Max Quake previously, right? But in that situation, right, I outspeed both, I click Origin Pulse, fine. I double connect, great, game over. Nope. I kill the Zacian, and this Torkoal, which I learned from Philip afterwards, was like special defense boosting nature, basically matched HP, basically matched special defense, and even then it's a roll. It survived on 1 HP. A singular health point it survived on. It proceeded to get off a yawn, protected the next turn, Kyogre goes to sleep, and then it body presses me on my guaranteed sleep turn. I don't wake up turn 1. It body presses me again. That's game 2. So I was literally 1 HP away from being 4-0 without dropping a game. Then that craziness happens, and then game 3, again, I can't remember exactly what happened, but I just got outplayed. From what I remember, like, I don't think there was really any hacks in this set. I think maybe the haxiest thing that happened, apart from the rolls on Torkoal or whatever, was in game 1, me not getting, like, any full paralysis despite paralysing his whole team, but I won that game anyway, so I can't really complain. But yeah, that set was insane. Like, I think my biggest regret about that set is the fact that it wasn't the stream match, because that would have been so sick. I think... As the person who lost the set, it stings a little bit. But if I take a step back and look at that from like a neutral observer's standpoint, that set is insane. It was so sick. And I think like I tweeted about it afterwards, Philip tweeted about it afterwards. It was one of those sets. But yeah, that put me at 3-1. And then I came up against people like Bernard, Red Silver. If anyone's been following my YouTube for a while, he was on my AML team last season. And this matchup is nightmarish. I should say as well, Hippolyte is a very, very good player. Like, he's cut... Well, he would have cut Bilbao, and then he got caught out in a hat check because his Zacian had I think it had PK Hex as its trainer ID, which is dumb. Just unofficially, my stance on genning mons, I don't care. Just make them convincing enough to get past the hack check, right? Don't have PK Hex as the OT. That's dumb. But had he not been DQ'd, he would have been top 8 Bilbao. He got top 8 in Lille here. I think he got top 16 in Bremen as well. So, like, very, very good player with a matchup that is very difficult for me. And the reason this matchup is so difficult is because this is Support Thunderous. So it's a combination of Support Thunderous, Kyogre, and Shedinja, I think, is the real problem for me here. Because Shedinja, I have 2 Pokemon on my team that can hit Shedinja for super effective damage, those being Incineroar and Zapdos, right? And then, like, maybe G-Max Rilla, because G-Max Rilla's G-Max Drum Solo ignores abilities, including Wonder Guard, so you can hit Shedinja with that. It's a little bit hairy because Shedinja's got a Sash and it can endure an ally switch and stuff, but like that's also a potential way of breaking through that. But the issue is Zapdos and Incineroar do really badly into the kind of Thunderousization Kyogre mode that was brought. Like both games, it was Thunderization lead from Hippo, and then Kyogre Shedinja back end. And the issue with this is that the 2 Pokemon I want to break Shedinja with, that being Incineroar and Zapdos, can't really do anything to Kyogre with a Support Thunder on the field, right? Because obviously Incineroar just gets deleted by Kyogre, that's kind of obvious. But Zapdos gets Eerie Impulsed, and then I can't do any damage to Kyogre, and it will just break me in half, right? And once Kyogre clears out those threats, I've got nothing to stop Shedinja. And that was where the problem came in. Like, I have answers to Shedinja on my team, but I can't get through Kyogre with a minus whatever special attack Zapdos after an Eerie Impulse. Instinct is obviously dead, so I have to play super carefully with that, but that's kind of difficult. So basically, like, it's a really tough matchup, and Hippo played super good, like, never really gave me much of an in. I don't think I've necessarily played the matches terribly, but it's one of those ones where, like, it's a tough matchup against a very good player. So I don't feel too bad about losing that one. Although I was, again, 1 HP away in round 4 from winning that round and not having to play Hippo in the first place. But I was in France, I probably would have played another Shedinja player. For context, French players, like, there have been so many French players bringing Shedinja to regionals and stuff. Like, the guy who won, Thomas, the guy who won Lille, was also running Shedinja. I don't know if it was the exact same 6, but it was similar at least. Yeah, that was round 5. So that put me at 3-2. So the situation now is basically I would need to win the last 2 in order to get CP from this event, which was my primary goal. Next round, I come up against kind of Diego. Really nice guy, actually. Really enjoyed playing him. We bumped into him at Bremen as well, actually. He recognised me, which was fun, so we kind of chatted there a little bit as well. But yeah, honestly, this game, I played sick. I was positioning really well, because the trick with this matchup, well, the trick to most Sun matchups with a Rain team is about positioning so that you can keep weather control and neutralising opponents' threats. So it's about keeping Incineroar in a position where you can intimidate Groudons. You need to be able to pivot your Kyogre in and out effectively. So I think my 4 to this one was like Zap, Incin, Rilla, Kyogre. I don't think I brought Zacian to this one. I could be wrong, maybe I did. But, like, I mean, it's Charizard, Incin, Groudon. It's not a great bring. It's not amazing into Venusaur. I can't remember. I definitely brought Incin, Rillaboom, Kyogre. I can't remember what the last thought was. But yeah, this game, basically, I just played in such a way that I never let my opponent get into a position where they could get any kind of momentum at all. Basically, I was basically covering options so well that my opponent thought I was reading him, which I wasn't. I was just doing option coverage, but I was doing it well enough that it looked like I was making hard reads. Yeah, so there was a lot of stuff like... I'm trying to think what it was. Like, there were situations where I had the slowest Pokemon on the field on lead. I think it was like my Incin was the slowest one on the field on lead, and my opponent led Charizard and something else, and I thought, right, well, I can hard switch my Incin into Kyogre. I will always have Rain up here because they cannot switch their Groudon later than that. And it's kind of using situations like that where you can guarantee you've got weather control for a certain amount of time or whatever. Just meant that my opponent never really got any momentum. So on that one relatively comfortably. Last game, this one was kind of tricky. So this team, they look kind of similar on paper. But the Regieleki really changes the matchup because it's much more of a threat into Kyogre, and most notably it can slow down my Zacian so that like an Yveltal or a Groudon can outspeed it and just blast it. Yeah, game 1 the Aleki didn't come. I think it was game 1 ended up being pretty similar to my set against Diego, where it was just kind of positioning around. It was like Gastro, Instinct, Groudon, and Vino, I think. I don't think Yveltal came to this set actually at all. Yeah, again, it was the same thing, a lot of positioning, that kind of stuff. I ended up just keeping weather control, winning that one. Game 2 was an Aleki lead, I believe. And I can't remember exactly what I led into this, but I basically just got bounced by Aleki. I think it just like one-shot my Incineroar turn 1, and then I was in a bad position from that point onwards. Game 3, I adjusted. I think I led Grimmsnarl and Kyogre or something like that. I definitely led Kyogre. With the plan being to try and bait Gastro in and just play around it. My opponent didn't actually end up giving me the Gastro switch, which is a good move from my opponent. Like, sometimes you can just stay in front of a Kyogre when you have Gastro in the back, because, you know, you can expect that your opponent's not going to press Max Geyser because they're worried that you're going to switch in Gastro, so you can leave your Incineroar in and go for like a parting shot or something. So my plan there was to let my Grimmsnarl go down on turn 1, like just eat, fake out and whatever. Max my Kyogre and max strike the Regieleki so that I can bring in my Zacian, and then I'm faster than Regieleki, and then the next turn I can go for like Geyser Instant Beam with Bladaleki. And if they switch into Gastron at that point, I don't really care because I've taken out that max. I've got one more turn of my max. I've got Zacian, Kyogre, who can both threaten Gastro pretty hard with like max strike with Play Rough, that kind of thing. So at that point, I would have been in a pretty solid position, but then they didn't actually end up KOing my Grimmsnarl, because I think this was, this Regieleki was like special Magnet, but it was Thunderbolt rather than Rising Voltage, and Magnet instead of Life Orb. So that little bit of reduced damage meant my Grimmsnarl actually lived the Fake Out and Max Lightning combo, which kind of put a dampener on my plans, but it basically ended up just max striking things until it went down, killing the Gastro with, I think I had Roto Beam in the back. And then just kind of playing it out from there. But the end game came down to like a few calls on kind of Gastro protects, that kind of stuff. So it was a little bit hairy. Like I said, it ultimately came down to a couple of good calls on my end, as games do. But yeah, that was the end of Lille. And again, from 3-2, I was pretty happy to end up with a 5-2. Like, I'm not particularly upset with either of my losses. Like I said, the game against Philip was an insane set. Like, I really enjoyed that set. And then my set against Ippo was, like, it's a great player with a team that was, I think he said, specifically designed to beat the team I'm running. So like, that's always going to be tough. I'm not too worried about that. I'm just happy that I managed to, from 3-2, then bounce back in order to get CP from that one. So that is Lille done, and now we move on to Bremen. So Bremen again, same team. Got very unlucky with my round 1 draw in Bremen, because I came up against Alex Gomez in round 1 in a straight up mirror, except all of Alex's Pokemon were faster than mine, which made it very difficult. For those who don't know, Alex Gomez is a very well established VGC player. I can't, off the top of my head, tell you like what his achievements are, what he's won and stuff, but like he's been around for a while. He's a very, very good player. He just outpositioned me, basically. The mirror is always a bit of a weird one because it often comes down to like early game calls on, you know, does the Kyogre get Eerie Impulsed? Do you predict Zacian to switch in or protect, or to switch out or protect, or just swing? Do you T-Wave that slot? So it's kind of tricky in the mirror, but yeah, I just got outplayed. Round 2, this was a weird team I played in round 2. This person ended up doing, I think they ended up going like 5-3, so they didn't do too badly. But the team was Yveltal, which, did I see Yveltal? I did. I think it was Assault Vest, weirdly. I don't think it was Life Orb, if I remember correctly. Oh yeah, no, it was definitely Assault Vest. So it was Assault Vest Yveltal, and then Incineroar, Mimikyu. The Landorus was Scarfed. It was like Scarf Bulldoze, Raichu, and then Solgaleo. So given that team setup, it's like a million ways to proc Solgaleo, but no other damage, right? Like Scarflando does some damage, it's not that scary, you can max it, I guess, but then you're not maxing your Solga. Raichu's not really an offensive threat, Mimikyu's not an offensive threat, Incin's not an offensive threat. Yveltal could be if it was Life Orb, but it's the Assault Vest variant, so it's kind of slow and bulky, it's not that offensive. So the team just kind of felt very one-dimensional, and I managed to kind of, not convincingly, but convincingly enough, shut down the Solgaleo in game 1. I think the lead was like Raichu Solgaleo. So yeah, Yveltal has Sucker Punch, which you can use to proc Solgaleo if you want to, but Mimikyu has Shadow Sneak, Lando has Bulldoze, and Raichu had Brutal Swing. So there's like a million different ways to proc a Solgaleo. It was Raichu and Solg was the lead this time. I can't remember exactly what my play was, but I ended up getting off a Burning Jealousy on Solgaleo, which burned it. Well, I tried to do it twice. The first time I tried it, I got fully paralysed after being nuzzled on Incin. And then, yeah, second time I managed to get the burn off, stall up the last turn of Dynamax, and then from there I had Big Ogre in the back. So it was just a case of making sure I cleared out the Raichu, and then once Raichu was down, it was pretty plain sailing for Kyogre. Game 2, my opponent brought a really weird combination of Pokemon, because they led... What did they do? I think it was Mimikyu Yveltal was their lead, with like Landorus Raichu back end. I didn't realise it, or like, was it Lando Raichu? I think it was Lando Raichu. I don't really know what they were going for with that, I'll be completely honest. But I think they just got confused because, well, not confused, but I think they just got a bit stuck because I managed to shut down their Solgaleo pretty convincingly game 1, even through like a full para on one turn. So I think they kind of went, right, I'm going to change up strat here. And they led like Mimikyu Yveltal. I wasn't sure what they were going for. I was so convinced they were going to have Solgaleo back end, and then they didn't, which is very odd because, like I said, Solgaleo is the only real source of damage on this team. So I ended up getting to a position where I had my Kyogre on the field against, I think it was like into Lando Mimikyu or something like that, and I was just threatening a double KO with Spout. So it's one of those positions where I could just press the Water Spout button, I didn't need to max or anything. And on that turn, my opponent double switched into, that was when they revealed Raichu, they double switched into Raichu Yveltal. Raichu went down to Sash, Yveltal took like half. And even then they were forced to max their Yveltal in front of AV Kyogre and Grimmsnarl, and it did not end well for them. I basically just Spirit Break the Yveltal to death, and then they didn't have any damage left, and that was game. So yeah, that was a weird set. The game 2 was very odd on my opponent's part. Round 3, this is really similar actually to my round 6 matchup from Lille. The one difference is that this team has a Thundurus over Charizard, which does actually make the matchup a lot harder. Reason being, Incin's not as free, because obviously you threaten Defiant. Zapdos can't Eerie Impulse it like it can a Charizard. It threatens Kyogre a lot more. So I think, like, I mean, I've been running a similar-ish team for a while, just with an Umbreon over Gastro. Although Gastro is kind of an interesting inclusion here. I might actually try that out. Yeah, I think Thundy is so useful on these teams. And so, like, Thundy Incin was a lead that I really struggled to deal with. Because Thundy Incin could fake up my Incineroar, and then I can't Burning Jealousy them on the first turn of max, and they can two-shot my Incin, which puts me in a very weird spot. I honestly cannot remember exactly how this set played out. All that I remember is in the last game, I ended up in a situation where I think I had my Zacian and something else in against Groudon and Yveltal. This Yveltal had revealed Protect. It also had Air Slash, so I guess it. I don't think this team had Trick Room on anywhere, which is weird on teams like this, but I can see it, I guess. I tried Air Slash Lunala recently on an episode of the on a couple of episodes of the Ranked Report, and it just didn't feel very good, but it's an option. It's one they had. But basically, in that situation, with my Zacian on the field against Lunala Groudon, my thinking was, it's so obvious that I'm going to hit Lunala here, and that they want to protect. And then my way around that is to protect my Zacian so that I don't get Precipice Blades and die. So I thought my opponent would read into that and just swing and predict me to protect. But they did not. They just protected anyway. I Behemoth Blade to protect. I got hit by P-Blades. I lost. Because my nation got wiped out. So that one kind of came down to a call, but like I think I could have positioned myself better to get around it. Either way, it's not the world's easiest matchup, but at the same time I should be able to win that matchup. I just didn't play it as well as I should have done, I think. So that put me at 1-2. Now, bear in mind that an 8-round regional, in order to guarantee that you get CP, you need to be 6-2. 5 and 3s can get CP. And as it turns out, I learned at the end of the tournament that with the resistance I had, 5 and 2 would have been enough for me to get CP. 5 and 3 would have been enough for me to get CP out of this. But like it's maybe half of 5-3s get CP at events like these with the numbers we had. Because we had pretty low number. I think it was like 135 people or something like that. And the cutoff for 7 rounds, for 8 rounds is 124 players. So anything below 124 players is 7 rounds. Above is 8 rounds. And then once you get above, like it scales up with like 256 and all that. But yeah, basically, I was 1-2 and I needed 6-2 to get CP, and I kind of needed CP to qualify for Worlds. So the position I'm in at the moment is I'm 20 CP away from qualifying for Worlds, which means if I just place anywhere within, with the numbers of Milan, top 64 in Milan, I get Worlds, right? That's great. But if I didn't get CP from this event, from Bremen, I would have had to top cut Milan, which is a very, very different beast. Because that is going 7-1 versus probably 5-3, right? So I had a bit of a mountain to climb from this point. And spoilers, you've seen my record. I went 6-2, right? I ended up 16th. So I'm incredibly proud of how I played the back half of this tournament. Well, apart from a couple of blips, but like in general, I was super happy with how I played the back half of this tournament. Mostly just my mentality of like it's very easy to stress yourself out in these situations, and I think in any kind of competition like this, sports, anything like that. Hey, Fast Five, welcome. Yeah, like anything competitive, video games, sports, anything. I think mentality is such an important part of it, and I think the thing I did best at this tournament was from 1-2, just not panicking. Like, I was stressed, I knew there was a lot on the line, but the second I sat down at a table to play my games, it was like, right, okay, I'm just going to sit down, I'm going to play Pokemon, and I'm going to win the games, it's fine, right? So I think I did that, like, really, really well over the course of, certainly the latter half of this tournament. Round 4, another mirror in the Penguin Ditto. I need to still say Ditto, it's a Smash Bros term. Because in Smash Bros, when you play against somebody who's using the same character as you, that's a Ditto. And so I use that in Pokemon as well, but Ditto is an actual Pokemon, so I've confused a number of people by doing that. But yeah, it was a Penguin mirror. I'll be honest, can't remember how this set played out. I won both games, so quite well, apparently. But I'm just going to gloss over that because I don't actually remember it. This one was very interesting, my round 5. Game 1... What was game 1? It was like... I think my opponent went like... it was like Instant Ogre, Rillaboom, Calyrex or something like that. Or maybe they led Calyrex. But it was those 4, I'm pretty sure. I ended up winning that one pretty convincingly, I think. I think Grimmsnarl, Zapdos, or Grimmsnarl Ogre or something like that worked out pretty well as a lead. And I managed to just carry it from there. It's good to meet you in Bremen. Thank you. Yes, it was good to meet you as well. Thank you for stopping by the channel. I appreciate it. What was I saying? Yes. So game 2, they adjusted to bring Regieleki as the lead. And so I was forced into a position where I had to play a fun game of, is this Eleki physical or special? So basically, I kind of treated game 2 as like an information game, which is something you have a bit of license to do at a best of 3. So my play on turn 1 there was to set up light screen. No, I didn't set up light screen because I tried to set up light screen. They had like Eleki Incin, I think. So my play was I clicked light screen and switched in my Incineroar on my Kyogre slot, which I led. They faked out my Grimmsnarl and went for Max Lightning into my Incineroar. And basically, in that situation, barring a crit, if they kill my Incin, it's special. If they don't kill my Incin, it's physical, right? My Incin got one shot. Not a great start to a game, admittedly, but I got information that ended up being really valuable. So I brought back my Kyogre. I played out the rest of the game. I maxed Kyogre, set up light screen, took out the Eleki, but like I basically started from a 1 down and ended up losing that game. But it meant that in game 3, when they led the same thing of Insin, Regieleki, what I ended up doing was, I can't remember what I led. I led like, was it Rillaboom Kyogre? It was something in Kyogre. Because I knew it was special Aleki and I was Assault Vest Kyogre, I could just max in front of it. So I ended up just maxing my Kyogre. And I tanked a hit from Aleki. I didn't even lead Grimmsnarl this time, so I didn't get screens up or anything. Because Grimmsnarl just got faked out last time, it wasn't that useful. So I just maxed my Ogre, tanked to Max Lightning from Special Aleki. It did like half. And then I one-shot it with a Max Geyser. And then from that point on, in theory, the game should have been pretty comfortable. However, I played like an idiot. So it was a situation a couple of turns later, I think it was on the last turn of my max, they had their Incineroar and their Rillaboom on the field next to each other. And at this point I confirmed their Kyogre was scarfed, so my Rillaboom in the back, that's free, right? The second I bring Rillaboom in, if I can get Kyogre, if I can get them down to 2 Pokemon and bring in my Rillaboom, I have a guaranteed kill on their Kyogre, right? That's fine. So in this situation where it is Rillaboom and Incin against my Rillaboom and Kyogre, which is Dynamaxed, in my brain, in my very smart Pokemon brain, I thought I'm going to switch my Incineroar into my... No, sorry, I have Rillaboom on the field. Yes, so Rillaboom Kyogre. I said I'm going to switch my Incin into the Rillaboom slot. My Kyogre's about half, right? I'll intimidate the Rillaboom, I'll tank a Grassy Glide, I will kill their Incineroar. And if I do that, I end up in a situation where I am in a 4v2 against, like, I think I had Zacian in the back as well. I'm in a 4v2 against an intimidated Rillaboom and a Scarf Kyogre. And then all I need to do there is I can sack my Ogre at that point. I don't really care about it. I just need to get my Rillaboom in and then Grassy Glide the Kyogre and GG's, right? However, instead of hard switching, my dumb, stupid monkey brain processed I need to hard switch into Incin to I need to U-turn into Incin. And those are the buttons that my hands pressed. Now, here's the thing, right? U-turn doesn't go before Grassy Glide. I don't know if you knew that. Apparently I didn't. I thought I did. I apparently didn't. So my dumbass fucking brain pressed U-turn into their Rillaboom. I didn't get the Intimidate off. My Kyogre dropped to a Grassy Glide. And I got a little bit of damage down on their Rillaboom. Not very useful, mind you. Not nearly as useful as just taking out their Incin and winning the game on the spot. So from there I ended up in instead of a 4v2 endgame, I ended up in a 3v3 endgame. Where I had to basically make a bunch of reads as to whether the Kyogre would stay in or switch to the Incin, which was now in the back. So I didn't have the free glide into that slot. I had some weird calls to make with, because again, I knew the Kyogre was Scarf. Like, if I bring in my Zacian, do they want to get damage on Zacian and risk the Grassy Glide, or do they? I don't know. And so, yeah, I ended up winning that one just because I made a couple of calls correctly, but I didn't need to make the calls. And Jesus Christ, I almost threw away my Worlds invite because I forgot to hard switch and instead pressed U-turn like an idiot. If I had not won that set, if I had not won that game, I would have been so tilted. I was kind of tilted anyway, because I realised at that point that I needed to actually concentrate a lot harder for the last few rounds, but Jesus Christ. I was so close to just throwing my entire run away. Yeah, I got a little bit lucky in that game that I managed to win it in the end game after throwing that hard, but all's well that ends well, I guess. Jesus. Round 6. What happened in round 6? I remember what happened in round 6. My opponent led, Rillaboom Thundy into... Well, they had Thundy game 1. I can't remember what they had game 1. I remember game 2 they led Rillaboom Thundy, which I thought they might do because they wanted to get Fake Out down on Grimmsnarl because I set up Reflect in game 1 and they just didn't break through my Reflect very easily. And I correctly called with their Rillaboom Thundy lead that they would double into my Grimmsnarl turn 1 to try and stop it setting up screens, which... I can't remember if they killed my Grim or not. They may have done. Either way, I got a Burn Jealousy off. So I burned their Rillaboom, I burned their Thundy. And even if I didn't get Reflect, that's another free switch into Kyogre or Zacian in the back. which just cleaned up. So after turn 1, it was kind of GG's. Round 7, again, a lot of very similar teams going on at the moment. This core of, we see it here as well, the kind of the Groudon Instinct Thundy core. Sorry, Groudon Instinct Thundy Venu specifically, as the grass type. I saw a couple of times. And again, kind of similar here, that Groudon Instinct core, I saw a few times. But yeah, weird matchup. Hey, Kamikaze. For anyone who doesn't know, either in Twitch or YouTube, Senior Kamikaze, Maurice here, won Bremen. Dude's cracked. He, like, I played him in Liverpool. I won that set on a 50-50. And and then he went on to go completely crazy and win Bremen. It was an insane story. It was so sick. Like, watching him in Top Cut was great. I don't think he didn't drop a game in Top Cut either. It was crazy. But yeah, Maurice, I'm going very off on a tangent from my own run here, but Maurice's run was sick, so I'm going to talk about it. So he came into Bremen Regionals. He's not going to Milan. So this was his last event before Worlds. He was on 200 points, which meant he needed to top cut in order to get his Worlds qualification. Now, bear in mind, he had not top cut an event before or anything. I don't think Maurice had qualified for Worlds before. Correct me if I'm wrong, Maurice. And also, he hadn't played like any games on stream at a regional before. And this guy proceeds to go 7-1 in Swiss, and then win Top Cut without dropping a game. It was crazy. Dude's sick. And then we had a fun, anyone who's on Twitter. Oh, first season. Yeah, okay, so this dude just won a regional his first season. Fine. Home field advantage, he's German. It's home field advantage, he's in Bremen. I said I didn't win Liverpool, but whatever. I had to play Eric Rios and Pengi and Maurice at Liverpool. That's a hard draw. I'm happy with 6-2. Yeah, basically, dude went nuts. So yeah, that's I'm pointing down here because that's where my Twitch tag comes up on my screen. Up there, I guess, would be for you guys. That's Maurice. He's sick. He's chill. We love him. Cool guy. Great Pokemon player. Won a regional. Yeah, I beat Pengi in Liverpool. Maybe not with skill. I think maybe one could say there was a little bit of luck. By that I mean my -2 Calyrex crit his Zacian through screens with a Max Quake and just killed it. Which is a skill issue. Like, good players get crits. That's how it goes. But yeah, no, I kind of fluked to win against. Well, I say fluked to win. Like I played the set well. I won a game off him without any hacks, and then I got lucky in game 3. That's how Pokemon goes sometimes. But you are only lucky if you're good. Yes, that's correct. Like, kind of unironically, that's actually true. But that's a whole different tangent. I'm not going to get on that now. I'll talk about that for 5 hours, and this video is already approaching 40 minutes. Yeah, so my round 7 here. I'm trying to remember how game 1 went. I think it was Thundization lead both times. Was it? Yeah, it was Thundization both times. Game 1, they got burned Yellow Seed. And I won from there. Game 2, I really thought my opponent was going to mix up and not lead Thundization into a lead that basically hard countered Thundization the second time around, but they didn't. Which is a valid mix-up of just do the same thing and think your opponent's going to expect you to switch it up. So I went for a Zacian lead. I think I was anticipating Venusaur. So I think my plan was, I think I like Grimmsnarl Zacian, expecting Venusaur to be the lead to get around, like just to get speed control over my Pokemon, to not get destroyed by Burning Jealousy turn 1, get some damage down on Instant, that kind of stuff. That was not the case. I think I may have also expected like a Venu Thundy lead, so Zacian Grimm's my best cover into that, because I can cover the potential like Groudon switch into Venu by paralyzing the Venusaur, and I can hit the Thundy for big damage at the beginning of the play, that kind of stuff. But they ended up leading Zacian Thundy again. I made a read on turn 1 because I knew this Thundy had Brick Break, and screens was such a huge issue for them in game 1, and then Max Thundy didn't really get any mileage. So I thought, okay, I feel like there's a good chance that they're just going to go for a Brick Break and not commit to Dynamaxing turn 1 here. And I was kind of right. They didn't max, and they protected their Zacian, and I clicked Play Rough into their Thundy slot. So I thought I was Omega Brain, right? And then my opponent told me they misclicked. So I guess we take it. I basically just started the game of Pokemon up. Because they protected their Zacian turn 1, and I just clattered their Thundy. They didn't max. GG's, I guess. So that game was over pretty quick. Like, to be fair, Leafs did a pretty good job of trying to claw it back, but I mean, starting from 1 down when you've lost your best Dynamax target is tough. Right. We've got some appreciation for Maurice in my chat, which I love. We all love Maurice. Yeah, my round 8. So at this point, I'm 5-2. So Miguel's everywhere. Everyone's everywhere. It's a weirdly tight community. Everyone's everywhere. But yeah, my round 8. At this point, I'm 5-2. I think this was maybe the set I felt the most stressed going into. Was watching the best players. I'm flattered. Thank you. This was the set I was the most stressed going into, I think, just because I'd done so well in my last few games. I was like, okay, I've actually managed to pull this back. And so I was very nervous going into this. But again, I'm very proud of the fact that I managed to sit down at the table and just go, right, I'm just going to play the game. Like, when I was actually playing, I felt zero nerves, which is good. That's good mentality. It was also a really interesting set. I really enjoyed this set, actually. What did I do game 1? So game 1 I think I led Grim Insnell game 1 with like Ogre-Zacian back end. And no, I had Zap. I don't think I had Zacian. Did I go Grim? I may have gone Incin Zap or Grim Zap or something like that. I think it was Grim Zap, Incin. Anyway, I had a defensive setup. Basically, I ended up getting into a situation where I managed to get paralysis down on their Calyrex. Grimmsnell Speed Control is super useful in this game. In this matchup into like Charizard, Divino into Calyrex. So game 1, I got the paralysis on Calyrex, which then puts me in a really good position for endgame Kyogre, basically, is the key there. Because Kyogre, I think they went Grim Incin, Groudon, Calyrex. And in that situation, if I can get a paralysis down on Calyrex and clear out their Grimmsnarl, because they would Trick Iron Ball Grimmsnarl, I learned. If I can clear out the Grimmsnarl and paralyze the Calyrex, my Kyogre cleans up endgame, right? Especially if I can get it in a position where Groudon's already on the field, I can go for I can bring it in, just go for a Spout, and if they switch Groudon out to try and reset the weather, then I end up just killing whatever comes in. They get Groudon back in, but then I swing at them anyway. So that ended up panning out in game 1. Hey, Glove Bells. Also, yeah, endgame Kyogre is very, very crazy. The number of games, I think I went over this afterwards. I played a total of 19 games at Bremen. In which my Dynamax options were, I maxed Grimmsnarl once, which was, oh wait, which set was that in? Which set was that in? Oh, that was in my set against Rian, round 3. I maxed Grimmsnarl game 2. Because my Grimmsnarl had been yawned, and I was in a position where I'd given them a boost on their Thundy with my Incin, and I had Kyogre, and I couldn't take a hit myself, I can't protect. So I ended up making a play where I Dynamaxed my Grimmsnarl in order to set up Misty Terrain so the Yawn didn't go through, and then I KO'd their Thundy and won the game. It was sick. It was great. I love that play. Yeah, I maxed Grimmsnarl once. I maxed Zapdos once because I was backed into a corner. I ended up losing that game. I didn't want to do it. And then I maxed Kyogre 16 times. So, again, in 19 games, 1 Grimmsnarl, 1 Zapdos, 16 Kyogre. And you might be thinking, oh, Wenty, that adds up to 18. That is correct, because in game 2 of my round 2, I very deliberately didn't Dynamax, because I thought it would be funny to try and win without it. I got into an endgame position where, at any point in the game, as soon as Kyogre hit the field, I win, because I Dynamax it, and it's game over. But I wanted to win without Dynamaxing, so I didn't Dynamax, and it was very funny. So yeah, I had, in 19 games, 1 Zero Dynamax, 1 Zapdos Dynamax, 1 Grimmsnarl Dynamax, 16 Kyogre Dynamax. Mon's busted. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent again. How did you bring Rilla? Dude, I brought Rilla loads. And I will get to that, actually. Rilla was a really, really important part of this last set. And I think maybe the most interesting part of it, actually. But I found really, really useful. But like I said, I'll get onto that. So, yeah, game 1, I knock out the Grimmsnarl, I paralyze the Calyrex, I bring in Kyogre for endgame, and I win, right? Because I'm fast and everything now, and I can just spout. Or Max Geyser or whatever. Game 2, Bartosz ended up playing really, really well around my Game 1 strategy. Because basically, I think what he realised is that my Grimsnarl was causing a lot of disruption here. Did anyone punch a chair? Hold. Hold on that. Hold that thought. We'll get to that. Yeah, anyway, so Game 2, basically, Bartosz just never gave me an opportunity to do anything with Grimsnarl, because they just didn't show me their Calyrex for the whole game until Grimsnarl was down, basically. Until my Grimsnarl was down, that is. They just didn't show me Calyrex, so they didn't give me a chance to T-Wave that. And the issue with that is once Grim's got its screens up, into the rest of that team of Grimsnarl, Instinct, Groudon, if you can't paralyze stuff, you're not doing anything. But I don't have a safe switch into my back end. So my back end, I think, in game 2... I may have gone the same before, I can't remember. Or I may have switched up and brought Zacian. But, like, I just don't have a safe switch in there. So I can't switch my Grimsnarl out because something comes in and dies. And I can't keep my Grimsnarl in because it doesn't do anything, right? And so I ended up just basically with a dead slot the whole game. Yeah, and my opponent managed to trick an Iron Ball onto my Kyogre, which meant that it was slower than Incineroar, which meant that Incineroar could consistently parting shot off it, so I could never pin the Incin, which is one of the things that Kyogre does really well in this matchup, is that you can pin an Incineroar pretty well, but the second Iron Ball was on me, even though their Grimmsnarl now had an Assault Vest, weirdly it kind of worked out for them, because now they're tanking Kyogre's hits better and they could Spirit Break me, which is all they were doing anyway. So yeah, I ended up with Slow Kyogre. I couldn't deal any damage. I got parting shots a bunch of times. So basically, Bartosz adjusted really well in Game 2 to just not let my Grimmsnarl do anything. Was the key on that one. So Game 3, I mixed it up. And this comes back to your point, Maurice, about Rillaboom. I led Incin... What did I lead? Incin's... I think I identified that Grimmsnarl was the problem, basically. And if I could get rid of the Grimmsnarl really early on, Kyogre does really well. Because even if I don't manage to get paralysis down on Calyrex, like it's a Sophists Kyogre, I simply do not care, basically. So my entire game plan was don't let Grimmsnarl trick an Iron Ball onto me. So I ended up leading, I think, Zacian, and then I brought Kyogre Rillaboom back end. And Rillaboom ended up being so good in this matchup. Because the way that Rillaboom functions in this matchup is it just gets around the fact that Calyrex is way faster than everything. Like, huge damage on Groudon, huge damage on Calyrex, because I'm Miracle Seed. Decent damage on Grimmsnarl, that wasn't ever relevant. And I kind of figured, look, that both games my opponents brought the same four. I don't think they want to bring Venusaur or Charizard into my team, because both of them are really shut down by Rain being up. And they lose out on a Pokemon that ends up being really valuable for them. So I kind of went, right, I don't think you're bringing either of those two. I don't need my Grimmsnarl then for speed control on those, or for light screen. I'm just going to focus down your Grimmsnarl really early on. And yeah, like the game plan ended up working. They laid Instinct Grim again. And again, I just picked off the Grimmsnarl slot early doors. And then from there, I managed to leverage my Kyogre into a position where I was able to start firing off spouts. And the key was I had Rillaboom in the back end the whole time. And because I wasn't able to get any speed control down on their Calyrex, that ended up being super crucial. And even then, it ended up being an endgame where it was basically like, I knew my opponent was going to try and go for a double protect, but my best play is to hit them anyway, which is insane. Because they're in range of a Grassy Glide. And like the endgame was my Rillaboom and Kyogre with like 2 turns of terrain left. And I don't think I had Rain either. Or certainly at this point at least. Into Groudon and Calyrex. And I got into a position where I had to, like, my Calyrex had just protected to get around a Grassy Glide. And I knew they were going to go for another double protect, or at least I had a very strong suspicion. But even if they go for double protect, my best odds play is to hit into that slot, which is very, very weird. Because the way that works is if I hit that slot, I don't think their Groudon could have killed me from where they were, right? Because the Groudon was at like -3, I pivoted in and off it a few times. So I would have had another crack at Grassy Glide in the next turn. But if they go for the double protect and they hit the Groudon, then weirdly, the odds are in their favour to win that situation. Because if they go for the double protect and they fail, that means they're guaranteed to protect again next turn on the last turn of grassy terrain, which means that their Calyrex now outspeeds both my Pokemon, which were both at this point kind of low. And you Astral Barrage and you win, right? So I ended up in a very weird end game where I knew my opponent was going to go for the double protect, but it's so suboptimal, even if the read is correct, to make that read. Because if I make the read, even if I am correct, the odds are not in my favour to win the game. It was really weird. I ended up getting a touch fortunate because I ended up they didn't get the double protect and I killed their Calyrex and it was great. Oh no, I think they did kill my Rillaboom that turn, didn't I? But I ended up with a -3 Groudon into a Kyogre in the end. Yeah, like that was a really sick set. I would like Rillaboom was such a huge adaptation, and I think that set was one of the better sets I've played in terms of adjusting to an opponent's game plan. And that's the benefit of winning game 1 in a set like this, is that like when you win game 1, my opponent adapted really well in game 2 to what my game 1 strategy was, but then that gives you, as the person who won game 1, the ability in game 3 to then go, okay, you kind of still need to do this because you haven't seen me adapt to that at all, and so you can then adapt to what they're doing to play around that. And yeah, the Rillaboom endgame ended up being super, super valuable for me in that matchup. So yeah, basically to answer your question, Maurice, I genuinely think that Rillaboom is super, super good in this team. Especially with the number of Kyogres coming up again now. Like if you look at I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. Okay, like the look for Rillaboom is not great with literally every single team, both that I used and played against, having Incineroar, but like 4 Kyogres, like Rillaboom is a fan of that. It's great into Alecki, it's great into Calyrex. Basically, it's good for hitting the kind of fast Pokemon that you can't slow down. It's a great number of one game. I brought it way more than that, but I mean, you're the regional champ, so clearly you know more than I do. But I find it super useful for basically getting around matchups where I don't have the necessary speed control to deal with it. Like fast electric types, you can't really... Like, obviously, you can't T-Wave them. A lot of the time, you don't want your Kyogre to be in against them to max strike, and you don't have any other speed control. And so having that kind of really fast damage in Grassy Glide is super useful for that. So I found that to be very helpful. I've always brought it into Zation, this time it just didn't really feel right. I mean, that's fair enough. Like, Zation's a hard one to leave behind. But the thing is, though, like, in a lot of matchups, I won't bring Zation. Like, particularly into Sun, for example. I ended up bringing it in my round 8 here, but... like in kind of Sun with Gastro matchups, really was super valuable. Round 5 was Prime Ritter Angle. I definitely brought Rillaboom to that game. But yeah, like into kind of Sun teams with Gastro as well, it's super useful. I know Rinya's kind of falling off a bit at the moment. We're seeing a lot of uptick in like Lunadons all over the place, and a lot of them have Gastrodons on them. I mean, I think we've seen a fair number of, like, I've seen a couple of Calyrex Groudon pop up. So in situations like that, Gastro is really good as well. Rillaboom is really good because, it can outspeed and flatten Calyrex and Groudon. It beats Gastrodons that often come with those teams. Okay, chair punching. We're going to chair punching. We've stopped analysing Pokemon now. I will preface this by saying it wasn't a chair punch, it was a chair slap. And I will also say that it was me. I was the chair abuser this time round. However, it was not a negative chair abuse. It was a positive chair abuse. Now, bear in mind what I was saying earlier about my mentality throughout this tournament of being stressed but not letting it affect my gameplay. What that meant is that having gone from 1-2 to 6-2, winning 5 matches in a row in order to keep my World's Invite alive, basically, barring an insane performance in LAN. And especially coming off the back of a very, very close set that came down to a double protect. I had a lot of adrenaline. And I may have popped off a little bit. Just a little bit. Like, I did the whole, I did the fist bump, I said GG's, I had a quick chat about the set with my opponent, it was very cordial, and then the second I stood up, just all the adrenaline came with me. And so there was a little pop-off, and I may have slapped a chair. It was not like a chair-breaking punch. It was not like a casty chair hit, right? It wasn't that level of chair abuse. It's More like a friendly chair slap, an encouraging slap. But yeah, I was unfortunately the chair abuser at this particular event, and I'm not proud of it. What did the opponent do? It wasn't an angry slap. I think my opponent, it wasn't aimed in anyone's direction. There was no screaming or yelling associated with it. The full casty story is basically, from what I gather, lose game punch chair, I think is basically the extent of it. I don't know how much deeper it is than that. In person, I never get tilted, is the thing. Like, I show positive emotion a lot more than I show negative emotion when I'm competing. Same goes, I play a lot of tennis as well, so the same applies to that. Because showing negative emotion to your opponent gives them something to latch onto. Like, in tennis, in Pokemon, in whatever. If I see my opponent is getting frustrated, I will start to play really annoying. Like, if I'm playing against an opponent who gets tilted by hacks, for example, or perceived hacks, a lot of the time people get annoyed about hacks, even when it's kind of the most likely outcome in the long term. But in a situation like that, I'll often press T-Wave more than I normally would. I'll press T-Wave instead of setting up screens, because then if I get 1 or 2 full powers, my opponent starts getting very annoyed, and that's something you can latch onto. Yeah, anyway, that's the story of the 2 regionals I went to over the last couple of weekends. Like I said, 2 good results. 19th and 16th, pretty solid. Total of 140 CP from 2 events. Hate T-Wave so much. You're the kind of person I'd press it more against. There you go. Now you understand. But yeah, that's the story of my weekends across those 2 events. Good results. Like I said, I now just need to get any points from Milan. I'll talk about food after I've done my outro. So, my Worlds Invite is now... There's one more step, and it's top 64 Milan. With how I'm playing at the moment, I'm fairly confident. I've been so consistent recently. I've gotten CP from every regional I've been to. I'm sure there'll probably be a recap of that at some point next week. So tune into that if you want to keep up with more of this stuff. Thank you, first of all, everyone, for sitting through almost an hour of me rambling about Pokemon and various things. If you've been actively paying attention, that's quite impressive. If you just had me on in the background, thank you, I still appreciate it. If you haven't done so and you enjoyed the content, please do leave a like on the video, sub to the channel as well if you haven't already. I'm getting very close to a whopping 100 subscribers. Not a big milestone. It's a milestone nonetheless. I do this for fun. I don't care about number, but number still gives me serotonin. It's just how it works. Big number, big serotonin. So yeah, go sub to the channel if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitch as well if you want to do more kind of live interaction, that kind of stuff. I've not been streaming much recently because of the regionals grind, but once Milan's over, which is this weekend, I'll be streaming a lot more because I won't be try-hard practicing constantly. So go check out my Twitch as well. Thank you very much, Maurice, for the follow. There you go. Follow his example. If a regional champion is following me, then why wouldn't you? You know, it's just how it goes. But thank you all for tuning in. This has been a bit of a fun ramble. Some slightly more relaxed content. I'll be back to battle videos next week, as I said. Yeah, that's going to be all from me. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.